Well, hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, How to Secure and Streamline Clinical Communications. My name is Adam Mahmood, and I'm the industry lead of healthcare here at Jamp. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, Zach Walker, Vice President of Sales at PatientSafe Solutions. Now, today is a second webinar in our three-part series in different types of solutions in healthcare. We'd encourage you to head over to jamf.com to check out the other recordings. And of course, this webinar will be posted there in the next week or so. Today, we'll start with a brief overview of Jamf and then immediately dig into some key industry priorities and initiatives in healthcare. We'll transition from that into iOS solutions for care teams and the benefits that they can bring. And of course, cap that off with a deep dive into the PatientSafe solution. So to start, for those of you that aren't familiar, Jamf helps organizations succeed with Apple. We've been focused on this mission for well over 16 years, and we fundamentally embrace the native Apple technology experiences that consumers have come to know and love. And because of that, we've been focused on zero-day support for all new Apple releases for over a decade, in supporting new versions and features faster and better than anyone. Now, more specifically, what do we offer? We offer mobile device management for the entire Apple ecosystem. Whether you're deploying Macs, iPhones, iPads, or even Apple TV, Jamf can help. Today, we have more than 26,000 organizations that rely on Jamf, and this is in all different industries around the globe. In healthcare, 7 of the top 10 U.S. children's institutions leverage Jamf. 14 of the top 20 U.S. adults hospitals leverage Jamf. Now, from an MDM product perspective, we have 2 core offerings. Jamf Now, our simple, lightweight MDM solution that doesn't require any IT background, and Jamf Pro, our full-featured lifecycle management solution for orgs of all sizes. Think of Jamf Pro as a system of record for Apple devices that can integrate with other systems to drive new automated workflows. Now, what is MDM? Well, the items that you see here on the screen are the core tenets that make up MDM. Simply put, this is the framework by which corporate-owned and some personally owned Apple devices are deployed and managed throughout their life cycle. If you look at some of these concepts together, you can see the power of MDM. We can leverage configuration profiles. Think of these as a recipe of settings and deploy those configuration profiles out to devices to dictate how they should behave within your environment. IT can then report back on the health of each one of those devices through robust inventory management and reporting in Jamf Pro. And most importantly, we can set up actions, automated actions, when devices fall outside of compliance and ensure that without any manual work, devices are brought back into a healthy state. Now, if that's the IT overview of what MDM can do, well, what does it do for users? The goal is to ensure that when a user picks up an iOS device, in this case, they have exactly the resources that they need and not the distractions of other apps or default settings from Apple. So when you take together a best-in-class ecosystem like Apple and a dedicated Apple management solution like Jamf, and you thread that together with Apple's modern deployment programs and awesome solution partners like PatientSafe and ecosystem partners, you can really unlock some unique workflows and experiences. Now, this same type of partner concept is present in any industry, but certainly in healthcare, we see the benefit of an aligned strategy. Now, what's happening in healthcare? Well, there are a litany of different priorities and initiatives that executives face. But one common initiative that has been present for quite some time is this notion of patient-centric care. How do we truly put the patient first in everything that we do? And although this initiative or this priority isn't new, there are certainly new technology deployments that look to achieve this goal of patient-centric care. How do we better engage the patient at the bedside? Maybe provide them technology that empowers them in new ways. beyond the institution? How do we leverage technology beyond the four walls of the hospital itself and increase the adoption to discharge instructions, etc.? And very central to today's topic, how do we empower those care teams around the patients? How do we ensure that they save time, drive efficiencies, and ultimately drive better care? And this leads us to what Apple has available. With iOS as the platform, we have the ability to consolidate down all the disparate technology that's leveraged today and the 6 or 7 different tools that might be on the nursing tool belt in your institution, and put all of that into one device. And in some cases, one application on one device. And it's with that, I'd love to invite in Zach to talk about PatientSafe. Zach?
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for including us in your web session today. This is Zach Walker speaking. I'm the VP of Sales here at PatientSafe, and we appreciate all of you taking the time to hear our story today. We as a company believe that mobile solutions hold a key to making the experience of care simple and effective for all of those involved. PatientSafe offers a single application called PatientTouch that turns a smartphone into an all-purpose clinical device for the entire frontline care team to enable more efficient communication, collaboration, and clinical workflow. It consolidates traditionally disparate technologies that tend to fragment the experience of communicating, like voice over IP phones, pagers, voice badges, overhead pages, and even reduces the reliance on using workstations, and brings people and information together in an intuitive way to support effective decision-making, timeliness of care, and the ability to take action right from the palm of your hand. You'll see momentarily that PatientTouch is functionally centered around the patient, as you see here, that it brings the care team together around that patient, converges various communication channels like voice calling, secure messaging, paging, alerts, alarms, reminders, and ultimately provides the ability to execute high-frequency, low-duration style workflows such as rounding, specimen collection, bedside handoff, and many more. As we go through this, you may be wondering, where does all the information come from and where does it end up? PatientTouch leverages your existing clinical and IT infrastructure to create second-order value by bringing the information and tools together, organizing them intuitively, and giving you remote control on those technologies that you rely on around you. Launching into PatientTouch gives you instant access to view a unified inbox where all of your messages, pages, and alerts are organized by priority, by patient. You can also be brought into the inbox by an alert itself that wakes up the phone with varying types of sound or vibrations to let you know there's something needing your attention, minimizing disruption, but also ensuring that you don't miss anything important. As you saw in the video here, I touched a nurse call alert, and I'm going to have the options for what I can do with it. For example, I'm able to accept, reject, or call right back into the patient's room. If I hit reject, it's going to escalate to the next person on the team, ensuring timeliness of response. I could also call back into the patient's room if Tom, who's our patient, was a falls risk and he had indicated he needed to go to the bathroom instead of pain as the reason for the call. So tapping on Tom brings me into his face sheet, which you see here, and I can see more information about Tom. Notice that little blue M in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Tapping there brings me into our next slide, which reveals the latest clinical information on Tom. This comes from your EMR and gives you a snapshot view in context to your communication so that you don't have to go find a workstation or leave PatientTouch to gather what you need to support decision-making in that moment of care. The information that you saw here, like lab results, vitals, care notes, so on and so forth. Next on the home screen, notice there is a Care Team tab. Tapping there brings me into our next slide, which reveals other members of the care team that are currently assigned to Tom, on call, or available to communicate with. I tapped on Dr. Carter there and can see all the ways to communicate with him in that moment in time. I can either initiate a voice call or a secure message. If I wanted to start a group chat with the whole group, I can touch Start Group Chat that you see there in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to select Send Text. One of the great things about how this works is that you'll notice Tom is automatically tagged in this message, so the receiver will have all the same access to Tom's information as I just went through without having to manually type any of it. We always know that we have the right patient positively identified in our conversation, avoiding any confusion or potential errors. As you saw going through here, I can add photos, voice clips, prepared notes, and I selected pain management request, set the priority to high, and requested acknowledgement within 15 minutes. So if Dr. Carter doesn't get back to me, it'll remind me so I can know to escalate. So I hit send, and then what you're seeing here is that when the message is delivered, read, or acknowledged, it indicates it here. So no more page and pray like you may have experienced in the past. Phone calls inside the hospital are managed by your telecom system, like Cisco Unified Call Manager, leveraging your voice over IP network, and can leverage advanced technologies like Cisco Fastlane to ensure quality of service. And from a user experience perspective, is integrated with the native dialer like Apple Call Kit for consistent look and feel, and enable advanced features like three-way calling, just like you see here on the screen. Communication and collaboration often results in a decision that certain action needs to be taken. So PatientTouch also gives you the ability to carry out workflows. You may receive a notification that it's time to perform hourly rounds, as an example. PatientTouch leverages the native camera to scan the patient's wristband to initiate various workflows like hourly rounding checks like you see here. I can also provide other care as well, like an ulcer assessment, a bedside report, antimicrobial stewardship, sepsis alerts, to avoid drug-like mismatch, or I could even collect specimens through this application as well. We can also help you manage virtual teams for sepsis or rapid response to route life-critical alerts to only the right people at the right time to enable faster and more informed action to improve patient outcomes. Our mission at PatientSafe, everything we do, every software module we create, every feature or function, every partner we join forces with, such as Jamp, is aimed at making the experience of care simple and effective for all involved, the care team members as well as the patients. If you have interest in seeing this in action, we have a variety of customers who have had remarkable success transforming their workflows and achieving better outcomes through mobility. One pioneer in particular that has been doing iOS-based clinical mobility for almost a decade is Parkview Medical Center in Colorado. They are a 350-bed level 2 trauma center and have all their nurses, providers, phlebotomists, therapists, pharmacists, EVS transport, so on and so forth, collaborating through PatientTouch. Just some of the results they've achieved by this initiative is that they've been able to have a significant increase in their HCAP scores. They have also had a significant decrease in medication errors, and they're able to boast 100% of their clinicians utilizing the solution. So they have had remarkable adoption levels, and how they've utilized the solution at the bedside for specimen collections. They now can demonstrate that 100% of their specimens are collected at the bedside. Another thing the CIO, Steve Shirley, is proud of is that while having over 1,000 users on the system, they get very few support calls. He talks about the upfront diligence required to ensure that experience, but that once you do, it simply works. He also talks about how they've reduced documentation and coordination efforts and ultimately have reduced the amount of time nurses need to spend documenting and coordinating care by 60 minutes per nurse per shift. Steve Shirley is a great person to talk to. If you have interest in speaking with him, feel free to reach out to us and we can connect you. But you can also learn more on our website, or feel free to get in touch with us via our partners at Jamp. And lastly, we'd be happy to share our diligence framework that Steve Shirley and others have used to ensure reliability, scalability, manageability, and the ongoing achievement of outcomes through mobility, your mobility strategy.
Thanks so much for the overview, Zach. It's awesome to see what PatientTouch is capable of and the outcomes that have been driven at places like Parkview. But as we've talked about, the application is one part of the solution. Of course, the device is another. How do both of those items properly take advantage of the network and connect to resources? How does this all come together through the way that the device is managed? Let's dive into a few of these topics. So first, Apple has a deep partnership at an engineering level with Cisco and has brought forward a number of offerings to help from a networking perspective. One such example is Cisco Security Connector. This is a new iOS app that Cisco has introduced to tap into your existing investments into Cisco, such as Unity and Umbrella, and extend the visibility of network traffic, etc., all the way down through iOS. Now, this, of course, requires an MDM and one that can play nicely with Apple deployment programs, as this is only something that can be deployed to supervised iOS devices. Now, beyond Security Connector, and probably most important to this use case, is Cisco Fastlane. Cisco Fastlane is the term for quality of service on iOS. And again, based out of this deep partnership, they've made it possible for key applications to be built such that they can leverage quality of service on iOS. Well, of course, Cisco networks, if they're modern, are pre-configured for this exact type of workflow, and even older Cisco technology can be updated to leverage these strategies. But there's a key component here, and that's where MDM comes in. As we're deploying out a Wi-Fi payload via a configuration profile to a device, we have the ability to specify which apps that are in scope of that device can actually take advantage of Fastlane. So here you see an example of an Epic app as well as PatientTouch being marked for Fastlane. Very important. Now, beyond network, we need to think about how these devices are deployed out to different user groups. How might the strategy differ if I'm a doctor looking to access this on my personal device versus a device owned by the institution? So a few points. For BYOD, bring your own device strategies, Jamf has an awesome option. We can invite users to self-enroll via a website. And as they go through the enrollment process, you can see it's very clear as to what the ownership model is. Now, if I select personally owned, you can see there's very clear messaging that's provided to the user. I know exactly what IT can do and what IT cannot do on my device. This really helps to eradicate some fears or misconceptions, let's say Big Brother misconceptions of what IT is doing on a personal device, and help with that adoption. Now, what happens once that user goes through the enrollment? Well, they can automatically be distributed a key app like PatientTouch, and that app can be pre-configured through MDM so that it's properly configured for that environment and those servers for PatientTouch. We can push out VPN profiles and Wi-Fi profiles, etc. But probably the most exciting of this is that if that user, let's say, loses that device or leaves the org, we can do a corporate selective wipe, pulling back only the items that IT has deployed via MDM and not disturbing the personal footprint on the device. I should also mention that this is free for customers leveraging Jamf Cloud. There is no additional license cost for BYOD devices under management. Now, what about those corporate-owned devices? Well, we have a great way to deploy these out, leveraging Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. Those are those modern deployment programs that I mentioned at the beginning. Here you see an iPhone that is enrolling into Jamp for the first time. And the way that happens is by the user going through the iOS Setup Assistant. When that device is activated through Apple, it's detected as institutionally owned through, in this case, Apple Business Manager. Apple Business Manager points that device to the correct Jamf server to automatically enroll into management. And you can see over a matter of minutes, that configuration just shows up on the device. There's no additional hands-on work beyond the few taps that you saw. Now, if this user, again, loses their device or it's stolen, same process. We ship them a new device, and we, in some cases, let them open it up out of the box and power it on. Now, at Jamf, we've been thinking a lot about these types of user-empowering workflows. And we didn't want to stop here. This is a great solution for those one-to-one deployments out to users. But what about a scenario where you have a pool of shared devices and perhaps the shift worker needs to grab that device just for a temporary amount of time? And if we have different groups of users that all need access to different resources, how do we do that? And how can we still empower people with technology, but do this in this hybrid type environment? It was with that type of problem that Jamf developed a couple apps. And these were launched last year at our user conference, and we've had great adoption from the community. So first, Jamf Setup. This is the easiest way to allow a user to select the appropriate configuration for their device. And this is all done over the air without any cart or any IT involvement. So here's what it looks like. You see this iPhone X enrolled into Jamf and staged with Jamf Setup in the dock. The user can open it up and be met with a list of roles or personas that are pre-populated by IT in Jamf. And once the user makes the selection, that's it. They go back to the home screen, and the apps and the resources that they need are already there. It's that quick. Now, what about at the end of shift, or perhaps in maybe just a different deployment model, a scenario where we need to kind of remove our footprint from a device? How do we make that easy and allow the user to kick off the process? That's where Jamf Reset comes in. This is the easiest way for a user to initiate a full erase or wipe of an iOS device. And in the same vein as Jamf Setup, no IT or cart required. So here's a look at how this works. We open up the Reset app, and there's a big, in this case, red button, although that can be customized, asking the user what they want to do. Once we select that we want the device reset and we confirm that, that sends a request back to Jamf Pro to erase that device over the air. Now, based on the fact that Apple deployment programs are in place, we know when this device powers up, it's going to go through that automated enrollment back into Jamf and eventually get to that staged area with Jamf Setup in the dock. Now, some have asked, what about a cart-based model? What if we need all of our iOS devices in a central location so that they're secured and charged, and maybe even that charging solution brings in some of these wipe and restore workflows? Well, Jamf integrates with a solution from Apple Professional Services called APU, or Apple Provisioning Utility. And this can create that charging unit that is also a utility for fully preparing iOS devices without any touch of the device itself. So, to recap, we covered a number of items today, but the most important is how Apple and Jamf and PatientSafe come together to help you streamline and secure clinical communications. A few next steps to cover. Feel free to visit us over at jamf.com. We have an amazing wealth of resources for you to learn more about Apple management and, of course, specific offerings within healthcare. I mentioned how this is a part of a webinar series. Part 1 is available on demand, which digs into patient experience and devices provided to the patients themselves. Part 3 of the series comes up in May, and this is all focused on remote patient monitoring. I'd encourage you to head over to jamf.com and register for that webinar. Jamf also has an amazing community. It's called Jamf Nation. And today there are over 70,000 Apple IT administrators around the globe, some of whom don't even use Jamf as their MDM, I'll add, who interact throughout Jamf Nation. If you have a question about possibilities or problems you're running into, I'd encourage you to put it out on Jamf Nation and see what the community has to say. If there are any other application developers watching this today, know that we have a great program for you. Head over to developer.jamf.com and learn more. And many of those solutions end up on Jamf Marketplace. This is a place where you can find best-in-breed apps or integrations or even consultants that help you get the most out of Jamf Pro. PatientSafe can be found out on the Jamf Marketplace, and a short URL, jamf.it/PSS, will bring you directly there. Lastly, head over to jamf.com/healthcare for all the updates on the specific items that we covered today and all the new developments to come. And it's with that, we'd like to thank you so much for joining today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.